Hi, yes, I would like to speak regarding our American journalists or journalists conducting an interview for Americans. I find it that oftentimes these interviewers are poking and probing and being disrespectful to the one that they're interviewing. To me, you're supposed to be neutral. You're supposed to ask a question, allow the person whom you have asked a question time to respond uninterrupted so that nothing is taken out of context, so that the person speaking is not going to lose their train of thought or be disrespected. And if we watch interviews from 20 years ago and the interviews that are being conducted now, there's a significant difference. And not only do our interviewers interrupt the person they are interviewing, but they also are disrespectful in that they poke and probe. They instigate. So it's like these journalists go in with a biased point of view, and they want to convince the audience that their point of view is the truth without the audience being able to listen to both sides uninterrupted. And if the interviewer is his or her job is to interview, then conduct your interview, and then you can write a story, and then you can say, well, my point of view is such, but you cannot alter what the interviewee, the person being interviewed, is saying, because you just can't do that. So whether you're writing a story or a book or whatever, or an article for the newspaper, you have to be honest with the audience and say, well, I asked this, the response was this, and then in the conclusion you can go ahead and state your opinion, but the interviewer has already made their own decision by then. I oftentimes read the conclusion first to find out, what it's about. Then I go back and read it myself, because that way I already know which way we're going with this, and I can see right through everything. Unfortunately, some people don't read, the newspaper or the article in depth. They are just going by what's being reported in the media, and oftentimes you will watch a little bit of an interview, parts of the interview, for the highlights of the commercial advertising the news tonight, such and such person was interviewed, and they will have the highlight being something that's totally biased. So my idea of fairness is to conduct an interview without poking and probing, without being, if you're biased, that's fine. That's your prerogative. That's your business. That's your point of view. That's your God-given right. But keep it to yourself while you're conducting an interview, because when you're conducting an interview, your job is not to be giving your opinion. If you want to give your opinion, write an article, write a book, write something for the paper. But while you're conducting the interview, please don't interview the interviewee. That's my point of view. Another thing is the Afghan news. I think it's great. Americans are leaving, but if you look at the Afghan territory, there hasn't been a lot of progress, since Americans came on board. There's two points of view with that. One point of view, it's, oh, Americans can be spending money on some other people because we have our own issues here in America. But if we're going to be spending money on a war, we may as well be using it to genuinely help the native people that we are protecting. Just like what has happened in Yemen. All of this money has been wasted to hurt Yemen when a fraction of that money could have been better invested in helping the people. And that's my opinion. Not that we're supposed to be pouring out all this money for everybody and their brother, but if we are going to be investing it, let's invest it well to genuinely help others. And just because, we think that the Taliban or Al Qaeda or these different groups are bad, you have to understand everybody has a point of view. We need to understand that's their culture, that's their country. If somebody doesn't like it, then they can leave. And for us to be getting involved in just based on hearsay, here in America, if we look up terrorist groups, we have so many different terrorist groups, including some Christian groups. So that just goes to show you how many people are on this CIA, FBI watch list, and that in itself is oppression. Because anybody who has a strong opinion or a strong personality or a strong belief is automatically a potential danger. So this is even Americans. Some of these American lawyers are talking about these things, that how can we in America, how could we have become like this? This is something that President Eisenhower warned us about. Okay? He saw it coming. He saw it coming because he saw how the national security in the military was starting to change into something different and not for the better. We're not supposed to be using American taxpayers' money and invest it on hurting other people when, for example, this interview with the Taliban, this journalist is poking and probing as he is interviewing supposedly the enemy. This man, the Taliban leader, finally said, I agree. I'm going to come and give you my time out of my busy schedule to sit in front of you and please you with an interview. And the interviewer was insisting that Osama bin Laden, was involved in 9/11, and if it was or was not involved, the interviewer is not supposed to be poking and probing with that. It's like Americans are already leaving. It's peaceful. Leave it alone. Oftentimes, these interviewers provoke. The same thing with President Putin. The same thing with the former president of Iran. I've watched it over and over and over. Some interviewers do an excellent job. They allow the person being interviewed to respond. They don't interrupt. If they ask a controversial question, they'll ask it and they leave it alone. But some of these newer interviewers are poking and probing and instigating. And that's not good journalism, folks. It only provokes war and animosity among us. Journalists have a special duty and they have a lot of responsibility. And their responsibility is to be objective, to be neutral, You know, if you have a personal opinion, write a book, write an article, and state that that's your personal opinion. But don't try to, to convince the audience that your truth is the only truth, because there's two sides of the story. So respect those who are taking the time to give you an interview, because that's what pays your bread on the table. Thank you.